Misty Valley Cooperative presents When We Were Gone Astray. The paths of the world twist and turn. They divide and converge, taking you to unexpected places. Welcome to the haunted town of Assembly, and to the strange lands around it. The days are growing shorter, and the nights are chill. So put another log on the fire. Find a comfortable chair. Sit back. Relax. Listen. Chapter 17. Paraclete. The Sabbath oak was ancient, far older than the trees of the forest surrounding the old campground. According to legend, it had come by its name at the close of the 18th century, when settlers had felled 6 massive oaks in the span of a single week. By Saturday evening, only 1 tree remained in the grove, the greatest in that part of the forest. The woodcutters had chosen to let it stand, to signify a Sabbath for the land. Fletch's eyes seldom left Silver, who stood barely visible in the dark beneath the tree, dressed in one of the ancient woolen robes from the camphor-wood chest. Betsy stood beside him, similarly clad and equally still, holding the wooden box. Though the air was cold, Fletch was drenched in sweat beneath his coat. He tried to hide his trembling. People continued to gather around them silently, and soon there were more in the assembly than he could easily count. His father, grim-faced, stood beside him, clasping Liz Kendall's hand. As adamantly as Mark had opposed this practice, Fletch knew how much his presence meant to her. In the darkness, fire was kindled, and by its light Fletch saw Silver and Betsy more clearly. Doc Merritt approached the tree, accompanied by Forby and Josh. Near the fire, a woman's voice began singing the old hymn, Land of Rest, and other voices followed. I ought to have died a year ago, Fletch thought, but I didn't. Betsy brought me back to life, and now things are so different I can hardly remember who I was through all the years before. This will be like that for him. Betsy looked out over the gathered people. As the hymn ended, she passed the wooden box to Doc and began to speak, her voice traveling clearly through the cold air. 3 there be that bear witness in heaven, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, and these 3 be one. And 3 there be that bear witness on earth, the Spirit, the water, and the blood, and these 3 be one. The scepter shall not cease from thanksgiving, nor the staff from traveling, until he comes who shall be sent, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. She raised her hands. I stand between Pepuza and Timeon. Who is this who is coming, and who shall send him? Forby immediately responded, I, the human one, shall send him. I bear up his throne. Josh Avery's reply followed. I, the lion, shall send him. I bear up his throne. I, the ox, shall send him, Doc Merritt declared. I bear up his throne. Fletch saw Betsy look expectantly in their direction, and thought she must be looking toward his father, but her gaze moved beyond Mark. Fletch turned, and at first saw nothing. The light grew, a dim red glow emerging from between the terraces of the field. Then furrows of flame appeared, describing a forking path of fire. A man, tall and lean, came toward them. He looked gaunt much older than the last time Fletch had seen him. As he passed, Fletch smelled the reek of smoke from the man's body and clothing. Crowther Wills approached the Sabbath oak unchallenged, but he stopped before he reached the tree. "So speak the fiddlers three," he said to the men ahead of him. "You bring good news, but the eagle is not here. Apparently he is indisposed." Crowther looked to Betsy and gave a nod, offering the barest gesture of respect. But when he spoke again, the snarl in his voice could be heard by the whole assembly. "I, the wolf, shall send him. Let his throne take root in hell." Before Betsy could reply, Silver touched her arm. "It's okay," he told her. "Let him come." Betsy hesitated. She held Crowther's gaze. "Who is this who is coming?" she asked again, challenging him to answer. "The chains are loosed," said Crowther. "The flaming doors are opened. Whosoever will may come." This seemed to satisfy her, and Betsy stepped back, allowing him to approach. After a long moment, Doc Merritt opened the box, and Crowther removed one of the nails. Silver placed his hand against the tree. Fletch saw the point of the nail press sharp against the flesh of Silver's palm, and it froze him to the spot. He couldn't breathe. "Dad's right," he thought. "Nothing good can come from this." Crowther struck. The hammer fell like lightning. Silver convulsed and would have fallen if the other men had not supported him. Bright light and pain, the tree behind and above him, a sound like roaring. As the second nail drove through Silver's hand, Fletch cried out and crumpled to the ground. His father turned to him, bending down and taking hold of his hands. Blood streamed from Fletch's palms. It flooded down his arms, bright crimson. "I'm sorry," Fletch whispered. Betsy stepped away from the tree, bending down to help. "He's bleeding," Mark told her. "His hands are bleeding, just like Silver's." "I should have realized," she said. "What a fool I am not to have seen this, not to have known." "What do you mean?" Mark demanded. "Betsy, why is this happening to him?" "Because it's happening to Silver." "But how?" "Because I was mistaken. Silver isn't the Paraclete, and neither is Fletch, not by himself. They are the Paraclete together." In the midst of his agony, in spite of the physical distance between them, Fletch thought he felt the clasp of Silver's hand. He called to him. "I'm here." Pain had become a bridge between them. It provided an entry, a ruined gate into a place which would otherwise have been inaccessible. And when Fletch passed through, space opened around him, and he found himself alone. Silver was near, but unseen. A tumble of stone houses on the slope of a hill, bright water in a slow stream, forest. A frog leaps and vanishes into a pool. He scarcely had time to become aware of the succession of images before they faded. Pain returned, and he felt himself jerked back to the Sabbath oak, only he was no longer in the field, but rising above it. "Silver?" "I'm here. What do you see?" I can see Betsy and Dad and the others, but they're down below me. There's the field and the forest and the town and the highway leading to Winder. I can see the train." "Yes, I see all that too. It's raining. Are we in the air?" "I think so. Look, Silver, it's all curved and bright." Raindrops. It's like raindrops. Fletch held out his hands and saw rain falling from his fingers, each drop like a shining ruby, reflecting living pictures filled with color and movement. As each shimmering drop fell from his hand and vanished beyond his view, it was replaced by another and another, until the whole world was filled with blood and rain. Fletch. He looked up, startled. Had he been asleep? Light drops pattered musically on the roof, but the storm had passed, leaving an odor of damp earth in the cool air. Where am I? He wondered. Small bottles labeled in precise handwriting filled shelves along one wall. On a table built from an old barn door, a book lay open. Silver parted the shutters, and through the window they saw that the evening sky had cleared. Twilight rested on the plowed field, spreading in from the dark line of the forest's edge. Silver turned from the window, a blue glass bottle in his hand. This is the place I dream of, Fletch thought, the hall at the world's end. Silver moved beside him, radiant, and Fletch was astonished by him. Never in all his life had he seen anyone so beautiful. Silver, what have we become? What we always were, and never knew. Open your hands. Fletch felt the restless thing within him struggling to be free. He held his hands over the little bottle as drops of blood splashed down. They became a steady trickle, then a stream, but the bottle seemed to catch it all. He felt a surge of dizziness and panic. I can't. Silver, this is too much blood. He was losing himself as well as the wolf. There would be nothing of him left, and he would die. He tried to speak, but no words came. He was disembodied, floating above a dark, restless sea, looking up into his father's face and Betsy's. He detected a smell of disinfectant. There were needles in his hands. He was full of needles. People were singing. A field filled with people, and he was fixed to a tree, with blood running down his arms. His father turned to Betsy as she opened the leather case. Will these really help? Yes, I think so. Darkness took him, leading him deeper than sleep. He imagined himself sinking. How far down, he wondered. Does it go on forever? The distance below him seemed bottomless, and he sank immeasurable years before he came at last to rest on an old canvas cot beneath the arch of a low brick tomb. Below there was only the moving sea, its colors shifting. He reached down and dipped his hand into the water. Light spread from his fingertips, forming curls and spirals of luminescence. Wake. Wake, the way is dark, the graves are open, and the dead rise. Fletch struggled to open his eyes. Silver's face hovered above him, and beyond him he saw the spreading branches of the Sabbath oak. Betsy, he's waking up. Betsy's face came into view. His father and Liz were with her. Are things all right? Fletch managed to ask. Betsy looked at him very closely. Her eyes widened. Then she nodded. We thought we'd lost you. It appears we were mistaken. Is Silver okay? I'm here. Silver touched the side of his face, and Fletch saw that his hand was bound in white cloth. He found that his own hands were bandaged as well, and pain shot through him when he tried to move his fingers. Are these yours? Silver asked. You were gripping them like fury when Betsy bandaged your hands. He held out 75 cents in quarters. In the orchard, Fletch told him. They came down through the air, spinning. I caught them when they fell. It's the last thing I saw before I died." He recalled the gleam of the blade in the swift hand of Crowther Wills, the wrenching pain in his throat and the darkness which had closed behind it. But he also remembered blood on the hands of a strange girl in the shadows of the covered bridge, a kiss in the rain, bright patterns flooding his senses in a firelit room. Had these things happened to him as well? Fletch struggled to fit the merging memories and perspectives together. It was more than he could manage, but he didn't mind. He felt calm inside and very still, whole in a way he had not known before. They could ask him to rest in the sunlight for 100 years, and he wouldn't complain. But already Betsy was helping him to sit up. People gathered around them, and though no one spoke, Fletch sensed their concern and compassion. His father's face appeared, and Mark gave him the briefest of smiles. "Good to have you back," he said. "I don't know how you managed it, but it seems you're going to have an interesting life." Once Silver's hands had healed enough for him to drive, he and Fletch took the truck to Winder and went down into the chamber beneath the Baptist church. The lamps had been extinguished, and the room was dark and cold. The cot lay vacant, the blankets orderly and undisturbed. Crowther's hat lay at the foot of the cot. "What do you suppose happened?" Silver asked him. "No one was here to see. We were all at the Sabbath Oak." "I don't know," Fletch admitted. "I guess I disappeared." "Can you remember being here?" "A little bit. I remember the lamps. I was dreaming of you. Maybe the rest will come back to me." Silver looked at him closely, trying to understand. "And you're both here now, together?" "No, Silver, I keep telling you. I'm just one person. But I do remember the differences in my past, and in your past. I've got some stories you're going to want to hear." Silver gave him half a smile. "You're just like those cannas, Fletch." "What cannas?" "When I was little, I used to dance around a flower bed in the yard. Big, tall cannas. No matter where I stopped, it was never the place I started. That's how it is with you. I don't think I'll ever get all the way around you." Fletch took his hands. "Maybe you should just stand still." On an evening not long after, Fletch lay on the oriental rug in the library, listening to music. The record ended, and a pleasing silence followed. With an effort he roused himself and opened the door to the balcony. He stood at the railing, shivering with cold, but content. Snow had begun to fall, swirling between the house and the edge of the woods. An aroma of pipe smoke drifted up from the veranda, and he knew his father was outside, watching the snow as well. Fletch lifted his hands and found that his wounds enabled him to see and hear at a greater distance. For a while he watched the shifting patterns of ripples on the surface of the lake. Then he tried looking farther and glimpsed a shaft of yellow light across town on Willow Street as Betsy opened the door at Nellie's return. Their figures were no more than a dark silhouette against the light. Betsy lifted a hand in greeting, then pointed far away into the forest, to the clearing in the center of the labyrinth, where Silver danced in a circle of moonlight. "What do you see?" "I see the forest in the snow," Fletch replied softly, half asleep. "I see the boy I love. I see a drop falling from a glass rod, breaking into patterns." Fletch slept. When he awakened in the early hours of the morning, cold air had invaded his room. He sat up in bed, lit the lamp, and looked about, disconcerted. He smelled rotten wood and dank water. The window stood partially open, and the melting snow on the sill dripped steadily onto the floor. The night air moved about the room like breath from an ancient grave. Fletch pulled on his clothes and opened the door to the hall. At the far end, he saw that the door to the yellow room was ajar. "He's still here," he thought. Restless Jarrett, moving through the shadows toward the nightlight at the end of the hall. Fletch approached the door cautiously and eased it open. The yellow room looked much as he remembered, though there was a subtle difference. The window here was open as well, but he knew at once that the summer air flowing into the room came from many years ago. A trail of smoke rose from the wick of a lamp on the small round table by the rocking chair. On the table lay an issue of Leslie's Weekly from the first decade of the century. So that's it. Only a few steps, and years are crossed. He picked up the magazine. Beneath it, he found an old school reader, along with sheets of notepaper, advertisements, even strips of butcher paper, all covered with unsteady handwriting. A, B, C, D, E, A, B, C, D, E, N, E, L, L, I, E, A, V, E, R, Y. As one sheet of paper followed another, the hand which had drawn the letters became more assured. The sun has set, and the pond is still. No, John, she likes to be in the pond. James Murray made sang my lay. See how still she stands. My name is Jarrett Harbour. Nellie Avery, teach me to read. Fletch went to the window. There was no moon. He could not discern the shape of the barn, only the rising slope of the dark orchard beyond. The only light came from lanterns, which blazed like dark red stars. Fletch could hear men's voices. "I never done it." "Shut up. We know you done it. Heave him over. The men I killed, they done it, and she ain't the first. I cotched them all except the last. You know him, that slippery one in the hat. Oh, my poor Nellie." Leather creaked. A horse whinnied softly as the burden it carried was cut free, dropped to the ground, and dragged to the well. In a flash, Fletch was out of the room and running down the hall. He took the stairs as if on wings. Then he was through the kitchen and onto the back porch, the screen door slamming behind him. Halfway to the orchard well, he knew it was hopeless. The snow, swirling down through the air, told him that he and Jarrett were again separated by the barrier of years. His murder had happened long ago, and there was nothing Fletch could do to prevent it. No longer running, he moved toward the well, aware that he was very much alone. The orchard was too dark for him to make out the inscription, but he looked inside. It was darker than the night around him, the shaft an endless descent. He bent over the lip of the well, leaning head first into the blackness, stretching his arms as deep as he could. The damp air swirled around his face, and far below him something stirred. Though he saw nothing, he felt the coldness leave his hands. Warmth rose up through the well, passed above him into the open air, and became boundless. Lights winked into life around him, tiny and pale. He reached toward them and found they were only fireflies, brought to life by the warmth of the air, rising into the cold November night. A walk before dark. In the hall at the world's end, a blue glass bottle rests on the sill of the open window. You and I are there together. Images formed of light and mist linger in the air, glimmering before they dissolve and vanish. One of us takes the bottle, seals it with a cork, and returns it to the shelf. How many do you think there are? Memories? I don't know. I've never counted them. Hundreds, I'd guess. Some of them contradict each other, and some of them overlap. You know what I think? There are bottles within bottles. I'll bet the deeper you go, the more memories you can find. That makes me dizzy just to think about it. Are you tired? Let's take a walk before dark. We are learning how to live in this place, and how to move beyond it into other places, old and new. Each night is separate, slow and strange, and blessed with quiet water and the sound of wings. We descend the steps, hand in hand. Things appear well in the forest, except in the distance, where there is an odor of ash, of a fire gone dead. Silver, what can that be? Come on, let's find out. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this audiobook of When We Were Gone Astray, the second book of the Forked Ways. A third book, Dim and Flaring Lamps, will appear shortly. I'm Beau Farr. I'm grateful to R.J. Williams, who produced the recordings, and to the people who provided artwork for the chapters. The text and audio recordings are copyright 2023. All rights reserved.